Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, California.
Each week here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, we're wrapping up our summer backlog attack with New Super Mario Bros. U and Dragon Quest.
Yes, here it is. Been waiting all month for this.
Have you really?
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to lead with it, and then you're like, no, I'll do it next week. And then next week, it's like, no, I'll do it the week after. So here we are. No excuses left.
It is so hard to muster the enthusiasm to play a 25-year-old game. Is that accurate?
Keep going.
No, older?
Yeah, it didn't come out in like 1998.
Oh. Wow, was 1998 25 years ago?
Yeah, no, I should have said that. I'm feeling sad and old.
That is painful, yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Wait a minute. When
Every single time I'm like, 10 years ago in the year 2000.
In the year 2000. Yeah. Wait, when did Dragon Quest come out?
Well, now I'm going to be embarrassed because I don't know the exact year. It was like 85, I think. It was like in the 80s, quite old.
Ooh. All right. Well, yeah. So yeah.
But your point still stands.
My point still stands. It's an old game. I'm playing an updated version of it, so it definitely feels a little more modernized, obviously. But we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It came out in 86. I was so close.
Whew. Jeez. That's quite a long time ago.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah. So Dragon Quest.
Yeah, finally some Dragon Quest on the show. It's been a while.
It has. There are long gaps in between Dragon Quest installments of this podcast.
Yeah, not too much news about that new one. Wonder what's going on with the new one.
Well, they have something coming out this Christmas. One of the little side projects, right? The Dragon Quest Monsters or whatever it is.
The Monsters. Yeah, you're gonna check that one out.
No, I didn't play the little side quest thing that came out last year. So no, I'm a Dragon Quest side project off.
Well, what, you have to play them all in order now? Who do you think you are?
No, but I don't know. What if there's important story beats that I don't know because I missed the previous one?
I'm sure it'll be fine.
No, I can barely keep up with all the Persona games, let alone try to keep up with the Dragon Quest games.
Oh, well, they're all kind of separate. That's what's nice about them.
Yeah.
Persona's the same way, right? They're not really crossovers between the different installments.
No, I mean, all of the stuff within the kind of the Persona 5 side escapades have some degree of continuity, it seems.
But isn't that just because they're like pulling in characters from existing games? Like you just won't know who they are if you haven't played Persona 4 or 5 or whatever.
Yes, yeah. Well, there has been some of that, yeah, out there as well, but I don't think it's a thing where you like need to play Persona 3 to understand 4 because they're...
Oh, no, I don't think that's the case.
Basically start over from scratch every time.
It's not like Trails where before jumping into the new one, you have to play through 1,000 hours of all the previous installments. At least that's what I've been led to believe.
Yeah. Yes. We have somebody in our Discord who loves those games, right? Anytime
well, a surprising number of people who are big Trails fans. And I'm just like, oh, man, am I missing out by not playing these things? It's been a while. Like, JRPGs used to be my thing. And I feel like I just don't play them anymore. And I'm just like, what's the big one that I should be playing? Is it Trails? Should I be playing these? That's very intimidating.
Yeah. I mean, it is a big one. So, yes, it is that. I'm not sure if it means that you should be playing it or not. But yeah. Not to disparage it. I know very little about the series. So if you're into it, cool. That's great. Good for you. I only have so much bandwidth for all of these RPGs. And I don't think I've found a spot to put Trails yet.
Yeah. I don't have any ill will against the Trails series, but absolutely.
I feel similarly about the Xeno games.
Oh, that's the one I should be playing. That's the
Xenoblade right Chronicles, whatever number they're up to. I just like it's 100 and something hours of a video game that I just do not have room in my life for.
Oh, maybe that's what I want to play. We were talking before we started recording about what we are going to follow up the Backlog Attack with, and maybe it's Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah?
Maybe it's front mission. But there are a lot of options.
Have you been into the Xeno games at some point? I think you have, right?
Yeah. Well, Xenogears is one of my favorite games of all time.
Oh.
I don't know how strong of a connection they are across all of them. It's like some of the same. I think the writers have been involved across the series, but there was like Xenogears. There was Xenosaga on the PS2. Those were kind of hit or miss. But I have not played any of the Xenoblade trilogy, so maybe I'll start that up.
Man, is it a trilogy? I think I was only accounting for 2 of them in my brain, but...
Oh yeah, well there's the trilogy, and there's that weird X one on the Wii U. Maybe I should play a Wii U game.
Somebody has to.
Somebody has to. I feel like a lot of people are still holding out for that one to come to the Switch. I don't know how that campaign is progressing.
Yeah.
But it feels like one of the last games on the Wii U where it's just like, oh, is this really, like, you really have to start up a Wii U if you want to play this game? That just seems wrong.
There's not a lot of holdouts that have not made the transition from Wii U to Switch at this point. So it might just be that and what are the 2 Zelda games that have not made the jump yet?
Oh, from Wii U?
Yeah.
The remaster things, the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
Yes, there you go. Yep.
Yeah, those would be great if they were somewhere else, but I feel like it's a lower priority since they're just ports, I guess. But yeah, Nintendo's had a pretty good track record of sort of updating stuff for the Switch, so maybe it's just a matter of time. Maybe those will be on the Switch too. I feel like it's going to be a while before we see a full, like, proper new Zelda game, so maybe they could fill in the gaps with some Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
Yeah, absolutely. Those little side detours were always...
Okay, you know what? I should probably play Tears of the Kingdom. That's the game I forgot about. Remember that game?
Yeah, I fell off that one pretty hard, yeah. I mean, I put a ton of time into it and then just stopped because, other games came out and other priorities. And I always feel like I can go back to that. It'll be there waiting for me. It'll still be a great game. And
it's my
months.
Project for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And probably next year.
That's probably what we should jump into next. Yeah. So that's fine. It's there. It's still waiting for me. I put a lot of time, hours, not hundreds. No, that would be insane. Dozens, certainly, of hours into Tears of the Kingdom. You didn't play quite so many.
I played a lot of hours of that game.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it felt like.
I felt like you stopped before I stopped.
Oh, I definitely did. Yeah, that's true. But I do want to get back to it.
All right. Well, we just continue the backlog attack. For the rest of our lives.
Yeah. That's basically all it is at this point. Everything is a backlog game. Man, speaking of backlog games, how much Starfield did you play this weekend?
0 hours.
0 hours? What?
Not a 1.
Not a 1? You're not a Bethesda fan?
No. Have I? I don't think I've played many Bethesda games.
Actually, yeah, I guess that's right. Like, which other games would you have played?
What are some Bethesda games?
What are some? You never played Elder Scrolls, like any of the Skyrim and all that stuff, or
nope.
Fallout?
Nope. No, nope. I've dabbled in Fallout. I don't think it was for me.
Yeah. So no Starfield then.
No Starfield. I mean, I'm kind of intrigued by it. I mean, you certainly can't ignore it this week. It's everywhere. And it's available on the Game Pass. So I have that. I could play it for free. It's just a matter of finding the time. So I might give it a shot. I might give it a whirl. It'd be fun to talk about here. Yeah. I certainly have 0 expectations of it. I had a weird conversation with my girlfriend a couple weeks ago where she's like, what is this Starfield thing I keep hearing about?
Oh.
And I'm like, what?
Like, first of all, why do you keep hearing about it? Or
where do you keep hearing about Starfield? And she is, of course, on, TikTok and Snapchat and all kinds of other things where apparently it keeps coming up. There are ads for it or people talking about it or somebody's, partner is excited about it and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, what? How did this make it onto your radar before it made it onto mine? That's weird. But yeah, so it is. Starfield is a thing, is a phenomenon. People seem okay with it. People seem satisfied by it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that your impression? Yeah. Although I don't know if it's necessarily doing a lot of things that No Man's Sky did before.
I don't know. The reactions I've seen to it so far are not like, oh my god, this is like revolutionary.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, oh, it's another Bethesda giant RPG, and they kind of know what that entails. But it's like a very comfortable kind of game to get into.
Yeah. So
yeah, I thought about playing it because I have never really, like, I have also not really played any Bethesda games. I think I would prefer sort of the sci-fi, like, space setting over something like Skyrim and definitely Fallout.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Sci-fi is definitely an easier sell for me than dragons and wizards and things.
Yeah. Oh man, Skyrim, if you're not into dragons, you're going to have a problem. So I was like, okay, so maybe I'll give Skyrim a try. And then I just forgot that it's like not on PlayStation. So I was like, oh, well, we were that close.
Yeah.
We almost played some, God, I can't remember what it's called anymore. Almost played some Starfield. Skyfall.
I mean, Skyrim is on Switch. You could play it on the Switch.
But I don't want to play Skyrim.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, I think I'm good. I was going to check out Starfield. Did I say Skyrim?
Yeah, I was not following you. I apologize.
Okay, now I want to play the new one with the spaceships, but it's not on PlayStation.
So potentially coming in the next couple of weeks, maybe some Starfield.
Okay, good. I'll look forward to it.
Yep.
I'll tell you, I watched a lot of people playing Starfield this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of it was just in the character creator, which, I love a character creator. It's a lot of fun. Like, I saw some pretty interesting characters. And then the one stream I was watching, they spent so long making this cool character. He looked really, like, not your typical sort of, like, Commander Shepard video game protagonist kind of guy. He was just, like, this kind of schlubby, like, guy he would actually see working as a spaceship engineer, which I thought was a really cool take. And they got it down to, like, they got him, like, perfect. They just hit, like, confirm or whatever to start the game. And then the game just crashed. And to do it all over again. And I thought, oh, that's why I don't play Bethesda games, because that is just the experience for the first few weeks or months or years, depending on which one you're playing. So that was a kind of a, splash of cold water over my enthusiasm to play Starfield.
There was something I was monitoring over the weekend that was a streamer, and I don't watch a lot of streamers. I certainly don't tune in to watch people play video games very often. But the streamer was going to sort of fly to Pluto in Starfield in real time. Which would take like 9 hours of just sort of full throttle pointing your ship in a direction, and hopefully it doesn't go off course. So she started it and then went to bed. And then woke up the next morning and nudged herself back in the general direction because she had drifted off course a little bit, and got to Pluto, and it was like a JPEG. Like, she could fly through it. It didn't have solid mass. You couldn't interact with it or land on it in any way unless you sort of triggered a cutscene that would sort of shows your ship landing on a planet. So it definitely wasn't I think what she was thinking it was going to be. I still don't have a sense of what Starfield is, but it's again, No Man's Sky has been out for 6 years now, and you just, you see a planet, you fly to it, and you land. And Starfield is a different game, apparently.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talking about that very specific part of the experience. It's very underwhelming if you've played No Man's Sky, because in this one you just go to a planet and go to a loading screen, and then you're on the planet. It's not quite as immersive.
But, No Man's Sky certainly had its problems. It has morphed and updated about 16 times in the last 6 years, so it is no longer that product, clearly. But, Starfield, I think the whole Bethesda thing clearly is its own type of game, and if you sort of are into the Fallouts and the Elder Scrolls, you probably know what you're getting yourself into. I've not clearly had that experience, so I don't have a sense of what the heck it is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I'd be interested to hear what you think of it if you do end up trying it out. I feel like it's pretty different than stuff you played. Although you did play that Outer Worlds game a bit, right?
Yes, I did play that. Was that Bethesda? I think that was the other.
No, but I feel like that's probably the closest thing.
Yes.
To it.
Yeah, that was fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah. Like, not great enough that I wanted to play the sequel when it came out, but like, I see what the appeal is. A lot of like surprising deaths in that, if I remember correctly. It was a lot of sort of, and this was my experience with Fallout as well. I remember playing the Fallout 4 when it first came out. And it was like death is waiting for you around every corner.
My God.
I don't even know how I died, but my head just exploded and my arm just fell off. And
your surprising deaths. Okay.
Yes.
I thought it was just like people in my party just keep getting executed for like, I don't know, as part of the plot twist or something.
Oh, no, just me, like, I don't know, walking through the desert and suddenly I'm dead. Because, hey, there's a sniper over there and he shot my head off.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. It's while I guess I didn't have the healthy sense of respect for the violent post-apocalyptic world that I should have had.
Yeah, man. Well, you gotta get in the mindset when the nuclear apocalypse comes. You gotta be ready. You can't just walk through the desert. What were you thinking?
Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So all of that is out there. I don't know what to play next. I like the idea of being a schlubby, not fit for service starship captain. So maybe that's the way to go.
Well, I liked it because he was like, he was on the heavier side, this character that they made. Eventually, he rebuilt the entire character and started the game without crashing. So I got to see him running around a little bit. And he was just like, sprinting full speed like any other video game character. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess maybe he's in better shape than I thought. I definitely could not move like that. I'm not not quite as heavy set as that character was.
While we're kind of on the topic of, I guess the Wii U put this into my brain, but are you monitoring with any level of interest the PlayStation Portal?
I had thoughts about this.
Yeah.
I'm not really keeping an eye on it. But no, I think it's just it's the latest sort of Sony minimal effort kind of like, hey, Nintendo's got their weird portable thing, so we should have one that doesn't really do the exact same thing, but we have something that looks like it.
Yeah. So for our listeners, this is like DJ said, sort of a hastily announced Sony product that is a streaming handheld device, I guess. This was previously called Project Q, if I remember correctly, and over the last couple of weeks it has sort of been officially named the PlayStation Portal. It is not a handheld device that you can play video games on. You can't like download and play a game on it like you would the Switch.
Yeah, it's not the Sony Switch.
Right. It's the Sony Wii U.
It's a Sony Wii U tablet.
So you run a game on your PlayStation 5 and it beams it as if by magic to your PlayStation Portal. And as long as you have a pretty good Wi-Fi signal, it seems like you can kind of do that anywhere, maybe. Asterisk in the corner to be determined.
Yeah, there are people out there who claim they can get PlayStation Remote Play to work outside of their house. Like they're staying in a hotel somewhere. They can connect to their PlayStation back at home. I've never been able to do that. I can barely get it working inside my apartment. But if you could do that, that would be amazing because I'm actually a huge fan of Remote Play. Like when it does work, it's really, really good.
Yeah.
In fact, okay, I just remembered what I was going to say about the Portal. I think that so they don't let you do like streaming games. They don't let you do any of the back catalog, like the retro stuff, if you're paying the exorbitant PlayStation Plus fees for that highest tier to get you all the retro games.
Right.
You cannot do that on the
you
Portal.
Own and that lives on your hard drive.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge miss. I think that if they did support that, I might consider getting one of these things because I would love to have just a little handheld thing where I could play, PlayStation 3 games or whatever. Because, that doesn't exist.
Right, yes. Yeah, and unless you have a PlayStation 3 hooked up or that streaming service, there's not really a lot of ways to... Because those games generally are not backwards compatible. You can't just pop them into your PlayStation 4 or 5 and play them.
Yeah. And in fact, you can't even stream that stuff over the PlayStation Now app.
Oh, really?
I have my tablet. At least that's my understanding.
Oh, I thought most of that stuff was on there.
Well, I have my tablet set up like in my bedroom if I ever feel like playing a like a remote play thing before bed for whatever reason. And I think, it's like limited to the same stuff that you could play on the Portal. So just stuff that you already have locally, which I think, it's a huge missed opportunity.
So, I mean, like I sort of technology-wise, I kind of wrap my brain around it. Like to do that, they would have to stream the game from Sony to your PlayStation 5. And then your PlayStation 5 would have to serve it to your PlayStation Portal. And all of that would have to be relatively lag-free for you to be able to play the video game. So I understand why it doesn't do it, but it does seem like, to your point, a giant missed opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm not a network engineer, but I'm just like, why could you just like have it streamed directly to the thing? Would that be too difficult? I don't know if that is realistic or not, but that would be incredible.
Yeah, I've had sort of limited luck with remote play on the Vita.
The Vita was terrible.
See, it depended. Like,
it depended on quite a few things.
On a number of things, yeah. But I do recall at one point staying in like a Hampton Inn and being able to play Killzone or some shit like that on my Vita, streaming from my PlayStation 4 at the time successfully, and it feeling like magic. But it was not always the case that ran that way, and it certainly, like you said, even struggled to do it sometimes in my house on the same network. So I would love to have a PlayStation 5 portable device that I can take with me when I travel, which is quite a lot, and have access to all of the games that are just sitting on my PlayStation 5 doing nothing while I'm not at the house in front of my TV. But I think I'm going to have to wait for some reviews of this thing and people like get them out in the real world to sort of evaluate how they operate, because right now it just seems like this magical dream that Sony is pitching that they don't really have the best track record of supporting.
Yeah, don't have a great track record of supporting their handhelds.
Yeah, plus it's $200 and it doesn't play video games.
Yeah, see, if it could stream games, I would consider it, but like I basically have this already. It's just my tablet and controller set up. It's just not one nice sort of like discrete device.
Yeah.
So that's too bad.
Well, so it comes out in November. I'm intrigued, but like I keep hovering over the pre-order button, but I'm like, nah, I'm going to let somebody else be the guinea pig on this.
No, I wouldn't go with these right away.
Because, I mean, who knows? 6 months, Sony will just drop it and pretend that it never happened, because that's also part of their MO. So, I'm going to let other people spend the money and get some reviews out in the real world. They've done very little work, I think, to like prepare people for it or answer people's questions. All of the best stuff that I keep finding on the internet about the PlayStation Portal is on other people's websites, is like fan forums or Resetera or stuff like that. It's just sort of like somebody on Resetera made their own FAQ because Sony has not made one yet. So like when I Googled like, what's the screen on the PlayStation Portal, it doesn't take me to a Sony site or a PlayStation website. It takes me to Resetera.
Because it takes you to Resetera. Well, you might be better off that way.
And the short answer, it's LCD. It's not OLED.
Okay. Well, you want to cost $400?
Right. Yeah, I think that is their observation as well, as it's probably a smart choice to try to keep this thing, cost effective.
Yeah. Man, if only... I mean, I don't travel that much anymore. If only I could ever get it working outside of my apartment, I think that would be cool. If I just had the confidence that I could go somewhere and be able to use remote play, then I think it might be interesting. But that's not really been my experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's my wait and see. I think that's, again, if I can get this thing up and running on Hampton Inn Wi-Fi, then sold. I'm in, because again, I have a hard drive full of PlayStation games that I can't play 6 days a week when I'm not here, 5 days a week. But still, it's a lot. So if I had a cool toy that I could travel with and throw in my bag and have access to remotely, then that seems like a win to me. But I'm not confident it's going to work.
Do you travel with a laptop or anything?
Like work owns it though, so I can't install a ton of crap on it. So.
Can't install it. Oh, that's too bad. Man, the desktop version of the remote play app is so good.
Oh, and you just use your PlayStation 5 controller, right?
Yeah, you just pair... I mean, it doesn't even need to be a PlayStation controller, I don't think. You can just pair whatever controller with it.
Cool.
For, like, the first few months, I had a PS4, I used it on my TV a little bit, and then I was like, no, can I just use the remote app? And then I just did that for I don't know how long. For several months, I played most of Dragon Quest Builders that way, and it was fine. Like I didn't have a bunch of latency issues or anything like I was expecting, like they used to have with man. If you ever tried remote play with the PS3, that was a whole different story. But it just feels like the technology is there. They just need to come out with some hardware that is reliable enough to support it, and send a network engineer along with me whenever I go on vacation, so they can set up my remote play, figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued, but not I guess not brave enough to be the guinea pig here. So
I would be wary of this one.
It is a weird looking device, though. For our listeners who have not actually seen this thing, you need to do yourself a favor and Google it, because it is a very strange looking toy.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
I get excited whenever somebody talks about it, because I think they're talking about Sony re-releasing the PlayStation Portable. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that. Let's just play PSP games for 5 more years. That'd be fun.
Nope.
But they're like, nope, gotta play God of War.
Yep. Sony's all, what's the PlayStation Portable? I've never heard of that.
Right. We thought we had scrubbed that from the internet.
So, onward to the Backlog Attack.
Let's do it.
Wrapping this thing up. Finishing strong.
Did we finish strong?
I don't know. Did we? So, Dragon Quest.
What do you want to start with?
Let's start with Dragon Quest. Yeah.
Let's do it.
I'll start with my caveat. I didn't put as much time into this as I would have liked to. It was poor planning on my behalf to try to do this over a holiday weekend, while I was also trying to sit by a pool and travel and be social. So unfortunately,
see, that's why you got to play it on your phone. So you're at a social function, you just take your phone off for a couple seconds, do a battle. I don't know what else.
Yeah,
but
we'll do a lot of grinding. This is sort of my impression of the first several hours of Dragon Quest, is that I am woefully underprepared for life outside of the castle in a lot of ways. You do have to do a lot of kind of early game grinding. So I feel like much of the time that I've spent with Dragon Quest thus far has really just been me kind of walking back and forth, taking down Drakis and prestidigitators and what's the other thing that I keep getting? A lot of scorpions, lots of scorpions.
Yeah, surprising amount of scorpions in this game.
Yeah, just to make enough money to have some armor and an axe that is strong enough to sort of wander beyond the castle walls a lot of ways. So there's a lot of big bad monsters out in the world of Dragon Quest, and you gotta kind of have to do a lot of work early on in this game to be able to kind of hold your own.
It's a bit of a slow ramp up. Yeah.
Yeah. But very charming. I think I'm playing the Switch version, which I suspect is very similar to the the portable one that you keep harping on, DJ.
Yeah.
So it looks great. It kind of looks a lot like Dragon Quest IX on the DS. Which also looks not entirely dissimilar to Dragon Quest XI when played in 3D or 2D mode.
Oh, the 2D version of it. Yeah.
Really, you kind of impressive little sprite work for the characters and all the little monsters and stuff, and it definitely does not feel like a 1986 game. It certainly has kind of a mid-2000s coat of paint on it, I think, that makes it feel and look a lot easier and a lot more accessible. You're still moving on a grid, so it's definitely best played with a D-pad. And it definitely still has a lot of random encounters, which, again, in those early hours, you kind of need actually to make money and level up.
Right.
But
they're quick. They're quick is the good thing.
Yes. Well, I've found that you early in the game, when you're setting up your profile, it asks you what you want your dialogue speed to be. And the dialogue speed is actually the combat speed as well, but the game doesn't tell you that.
It's sort of narrating everything that goes on in battle.
Yeah, so it makes things go much faster if you make your dialogue speed 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. and because it just sort of flies by, at least in the early hours anyways, when you're trying to level up and grind and get better weapons. That definitely makes it easier for you to kind of get through some of that early stuff. But it doesn't play like a 1986 video game. It does not feel like, man, I felt like when I was playing the original Legend of Zelda last year, that was really hard to get into. It felt very imposing. It did not feel very user-friendly in any way. And Dragon Quest definitely has been kind of modernized and made a little warmer and easier to approach in terms of kind of input and it kind of working the way that you expect it to, and kind of leveling systems and all of kind of the on-screen stuff being very, very similar to all of the portable Dragon Quest games that I've played before. So yeah, it definitely feels like it has been sort of brought in line with the rest of the Dragon Quest series. At least it's sort of as I expect it to be.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly nice update. I should mention that I also played this in spirit of just playing whatever retro game you're playing.
Oh, really?
But it is very similar to the mobile port. I think they just sort of like cleaned up the graphics even more, I think, for this release compared to the mobile version. Yeah. But yeah, it has a lot of the nice little sort of modern UI adjustments and sort of quality of life things.
Yeah, I love the little character art. I feel like it's really cool. Particularly the enemies that you run into. I have a lot of affection for, and as I know you do too, DJ, for some of these Dragon Quest enemies. So when they kind of pop up for the first time in the game, I'm like, hey, it's that guy. Oh, it's a skeleton. Watch out for them. They will kill you.
The character art was like a big surprise because a lot of the game, like when you're on the map, which is 90% of the game, they're very sort of pixelated, low resolution sprites. It looks like you're saying sort of a mid 2000s era sort of 2D game, but when you get into a battle, it's like this super nice, like high res, like backdrop, and then the monster art looks just like the the illustration version of it. It's like not pixelated at all. It looks really good. I was surprised.
Yeah. And they take the extra step, which I sort of appreciate, of whatever the type of terrain is that you're walking over on the overworld map. There is an animated background version of that for the character portrait. So if you're walking across the desert, the backdrop of the slime is going to be a desert setting. If you're in the woods, it's going to be trees behind them and stuff. So it's, again, little touches, little things like that. That's just sort of, oh, cool. Look at what they did. It feels like a little extra love, a little extra polish went into this thing.
Yeah.
The music is great. As soon as that Dragon Quest theme sort of starts up with the start screen, I was sort of like, oh, this feels good. And again, I don't know how true to the original package that was. Was the Dragon Quest theme in place from the very first time this game ever came out?
Yeah, it was there. I think, this, for the most part, it sticks to the original soundtrack. All the versions of it have been sort of like orchestrated a bit.
Yeah.
So they sound more like real instruments as
opposed to
it doesn't
sound like
chippy stuff.
It does sound like, instrumentation.
Yeah, although one issue I have with that is the battle theme is, like, it used to be this really sort of harsh and surprising sort of like, sort of does this loud battle intro whenever a monster would appear. And I guess that didn't really translate over to being performed by an orchestra, because in this one, it's just a very sort of slow and sweeping, it feels very different. And in fact, it's so slow, it's usually like the battle is over by the time the theme fully kicks in a lot of cases. So I think that was a strange option. But for the most part, it's a nice, like the soundtrack gets a nice update in this one, which is cool.
Cool. So yeah, I'm doing stuff. I don't know how much of this we want to sort of like dive into here. I'm certainly not anywhere near the end of it yet. I've put a handful of hours into it, but not a ton. But just starting to get into some of the other villages and get into the outskirts of the map now that I'm a little better kitted out. And again, it just feels like a Dragon Quest game, which is kind of the laziest review ever. But it does sort of feel like my experience with a lot of the, which is one of the ones that I played on the DS. It was 6, 7, and 8, I think, before obviously the big one was 9 that kind of got me into the series. And it feels very similar to those, although I've noticed that the original Dragon Quest, this one, it leans very heavily into the kind of the proper British patois, the like thous and thine and my lords and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't remember that being a thing in the Dragon Quest game. So it does make the dialogue a little wordier than I think I recognize or realize from some of the other Dragon Quest games.
Yeah. I think that was sort of just like a choice they made with the original English translation back on the NES. I guess it just felt appropriate. It's like, oh, it's a game about, kings and castles and dragons, so let's just have everybody say thee and thou. And it became kind of a meme. I forget when they ended up ditching that. I feel like it may have been around Dragon Quest VII or something like that, at least on the English side. I don't think it's ever been like that in Japanese. I guess obviously they wouldn't be saying thee and thou, but
right.
I don't know if they were always intended to have sort of that elevated or old-timey speech. I think they've always been kind of a little on the goofier side, like Dragon Quest IX.
Yeah. And I've mentioned before on the show that was my portal into the Dragon Quest games. That was the first one that I played. I put a ton of hours into that. So I feel like that in a lot of ways is still kind of my gold standard. And I don't remember that being the speech pattern in Dragon Quest IX. So I'm like, oh, this was a choice that somebody made. This is certainly a localization choice. But I get it, obviously.
Yeah. I think it's funny that they're still using that. I don't know if that continues on to the Dragon Quest 2 and 3 or 4 updates. I assume they were all like that on the NES. But then it feels like, they might as well do that for the Dragon Quest 1 update. But then I don't know how dedicated they are to it for the later ones.
You have to go back and do it to all the Dragon Quest games.
Yeah, well, I mean, the earlier ones, anyway, I imagine they drop it after 4, because those didn't even get English translations until much later.
But I'm into it. I wish I'd spent more time with it. Yeah. I definitely want to continue playing it. But I feel like, unlike Legend of Zelda, it does feel a lot more accessible, and I can certainly imagine myself finishing it. It's a little weird playing a Dragon Quest game without a party, though. That's the thing. I'm not accustomed to just sort of being the lone warrior in a Dragon Quest game. There's always, particularly as you get into 9 and 11, there's a lot of, less 9. You certainly have a party in 9, but in 11, the party is super animated, tons of dialogue, super funny, lots of kind of interesting characters that you encounter. And throughout much of Dragon Quest, it seems like, at least thus far, it's just you by yourself.
Yeah, and that's something that's really unusual and kind of unique about this one, is that they just didn't give you a party yet, so you're kind of on your own. And I feel like it's kind of it has its pluses and minuses. It makes the battles super quick, because you're also only ever fighting one monster at a time. But then there are these situations you get into.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's always just these little duels, basically.
Oh, okay.
But if a monster puts you to sleep, that's the worst thing that can happen in this game, because then you're just I don't have anybody who can wake me up. So I hope I just wake up before the monster kills me. But yeah, the whole experience because of that just feels very light to me. It's battles are super quick. You really just have to worry about your one guy. You only have to buy one set of equipment, all that stuff.
Yeah. I assume it's very different from my Persona experiences, where you have parties of, at some point in Persona 5, there were 8 or 9 people you were juggling and kitting out at some point. You only have 4, obviously, that you battle with most of the time, but you rotate them in and out. So it's important to keep them all kind of upgraded and stuff throughout the course of the game. So to just have the one, certainly does feel much more efficient.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was just you versus one enemy all the time. I assumed there would be more. I just assumed it was just me versus one earlier in the game. And at some point, because again, I remember most of the Dragon Quest games, you get 2 and 3 monsters per encounter. And that's, I guess, not the case in Dragon Quest.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the thinking was. Maybe they just wanted to keep it kind of an even playing field. It was so funny playing this, just having, I finished that Final Fantasy 1 Pixel Remaster a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
And in that one, you have a larger party of 4 people in it, so it makes sense that there'll be more monsters. But you will sometimes just get like a full grid of like 9 monsters on the other side of the screen, which is like, oh my god, that's so many. It's going to take so long. Like, even if I just cast a big spell that nukes all of them in one turn, I have to watch that animation play 9 times. Like, the battles take so long in that game. It's crazy compared to this.
Cool. So, yeah, I like it. I was fighting it most of the week. I was like, I'm not excited about playing this game. Have I made a mistake? Am I going to bounce off of this like I did Legend of Zelda? But it's much easier to play and much more fun. And
oh, good.
Yeah, in a lot of ways feels like a kind of a modern Dragon Quest game, other than some of the little things that we've talked about, like the random encounters or the party size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a bit of a slow ramp up, but before you know it, you'll just be like, one-shotting enemies, you'll be ready to move on to the next area, and you have tons of gold, so you can buy whatever equipment you want. It's good.
Yeah. One of the, there were 2 walkthroughs I was kind of bouncing back and forth between as I was kind of getting into this, trying to make sure I didn't like wander off and do something incredibly stupid. They were very clear in the game about like, don't cross any bridges unless you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they were smart. The developers were smart, and I'm not sure if this exists in the original Dragon Quest, about sort of giving you a little starting area where most of the monsters are pretty approachable. And then gating them as soon as you cross a bridge into a different part of the overworld. They start to bring the intensity. So yeah, it was pretty smart to have kind of, a couple of NPCs tell you at some point, don't cross any bridges unless you've got, healing herbs and stuff like that. So it was helpful to kind of keep me corralled. And then I did find a walkthrough that was like, if you walk back and forth during this, and, in these kind of 6 squares on this corner of the map, you get some pretty easy to pick off slightly higher level enemies early in the game. So you can upgrade pretty fast and make a little bit of money. And yeah, at some point I looked down and I had like 890 gold pieces. And I'm like, oh, hey, where did all of that come from? I was able to kind of get armor and get my first big iron axe and stuff like that. And I unlocked a couple of different healing unlocked heal, unlocked Sizz, the fireball thing, and a couple of others. So it certainly made it easier to start wandering into the darker corners of the map and start talking to more people in more villages and getting more information about where the story's going. And yeah, definitely, I'm still kind of in ramp up mode, I think, in a lot of ways, because I spent so much time kind of grinding earlier. But it was probably the smarter way to do it, rather than me just getting wiped out constantly.
Yeah, I'd recommend just following along with a walkthrough as you go through it.
Yeah. The walkthrough specifically said that it was not as grindy as the game originally was. So,
yeah. It felt like they definitely improved it in that sense.
Good. But I mean, for an old-fashioned Japanese RPG, I expect a little bit of grinding.
Yeah, sure. How much of that do you get in modern RPGs these days? Maybe you do a little bit of that in Persona, but certainly not to the extent like, you're just walking back and forth on the same map tiles for half an hour or whatever. That's a very sort of like, it's an experience that very much stayed back in the 90s.
Yeah. I remember not really having kind of like an understanding of how important it was to grind, I think, and trying to force my way through Dragon Quest IX, and you telling me, okay, calm down. You don't have to go so hard so fast. And there was some point on one of the maps where, like, if you stand at the bottom of this stairwell or at the bottom of this ladder, metal slimes will come eventually, and you can just wipe them out. So I stood there for, I don't remember how long I did it, many days. And just kind of one-shotted metal slimes over and over and over again, and made a ton of money and got a ton of XP. And certainly would not have had the patience to do that if I didn't have, a Dragon Quest expert such as yourself telling me where to stand and what to do. So again, it's just sort of the weird language of some of these games that you kind of have to get in the rhythm of.
Yeah. Man, once you find that metal slime spot, like once the first one appears, you're like, oh, this is it. I got to remember where this is so I can come back here.
Yep. So yeah. No, it's been good. It has been fun to sort of revisit a Dragon Quest game and see how this whole thing started. And again, to see, I think similar to The Legend of Zelda, how impressive it was that a lot of the things that I think are kind of stalwarts of either a Dragon Quest game or a Legend of Zelda game all came from that first game.
Yeah.
So be it the music or the monsters or the layout of the villages and the way that you sort of get your missions and the way that you save and the way that you heal yourself, like all of that stuff exists in the first Dragon Quest, and it is the same 11 games later. So they definitely kind of found a formula and stuck with it, but there's a familiarity to that. There's a warm, comfortable blanket that sort of feels like when you wander into something like this and realize that, hey, it's all been there since day one.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. If you go back to a lot of these old games, to just realize how many of these decisions that they made back then have just like perpetuated for 30 years, like into the future games. Like I always think about, but this is a later game, but like Street Fighter 2, when Yoko Shimomura composed like Ryu's theme. I was like, did you know that this is just going to be like, he's just going to have the same theme 30 years from now? Bet you never would have imagined. Actually, they changed this theme in the new one, but it's been around in quite a few versions up until that point. But stuff like that. It's just they probably just thought they were making this dinky little RPG back in 1986, and then here we are, what, 35 years later or something horrible like that, and it's like, oh yeah, you're still using like green medical herbs or whatever. You're still fighting the slimes on the overworld.
Yeah. And it's the same artwork. It's this, it's the stuff that was on the box cover for Dragon Quest or on the little icon on the top of your Nintendo Switch menu of the art. I don't remember his name. I apologize. You'll remind me of the guy that does Dragon Ball Z characters.
Oh, Akira Toriyama.
That guy. Yeah. That artwork is so iconic, and I think his style is obviously very recognizable, and it's the same image of a slime from 35 years ago that's in Dragon Quest 11. So,
yeah,
I the cynic in me thinks, well, that's lazy, mix it up. But no, it's nice. It's cool that it was all sort of there in the beginning, and they've kind of found a way to kind of continue to build more modern games around that framework.
And
still keep
they
it interesting.
Maintain the character. Across all the games.
Definitely.
There's this great sort of like pre-production design document where I think it was Yuji Horii, who's the director, drew his concept of a slime enemy. And he was like, okay, I think we gotta have a slime enemy, and it should look like this. And it just looked like, like a puddle of slime or something. Like just kind of gross looking slime pool. And then Akira Toriyama was like, well, I think maybe they should look like this. And he just like drew the iconic slime character. And then that was history.
And that's a slime in every video game ever for the rest of eternity.
Yeah. But just imagine if they've been like, you venture out and then just like this gross sort of generic slime puddle. Like, oh man, not quite as memorable as a little smiley guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that exists too, right? I mean, there's 100 variations of what a slime looks like in Dragon Quest as well. So you have the, your standard vanilla slime and the she slime, but there's all the little variations. There's the stacks and the puddles and the kings and all that other stuff too. So definitely find ways to continue to expand the language of what a slime looks like.
Yeah.
But they all still have the smiley face, yes.
Yeah, that's key. That's key.
So did you get through it on replay?
I did, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, hats off to you. You have done what I was not able to do. So thank you for finishing my backlog.
Well, I wasn't on vacation. I remember thinking it like, wow, this is taking a lot longer than I remember. Or it feels like it's taking a lot longer. But then I just looked up my little play history a couple days ago, and I think it said I played it for 5 hours or so. I'm like, oh, that's not that long at all.
Oh, cool. Maybe I'm further along than I thought. Excellent.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, this has been fun. It was definitely worth doing. I know it's a bit of a cheat, obviously, to not play the original 1986 version, but I'm kind of glad
I think that's fine.
This update exists because I don't know that I'd be able to do that.
Yeah, that would be rough. I think in that one there was like a separate menu command for going through a door or using the stairs. Oh, and to just talk to people. So in this one, you can just go up to somebody and push the A button or whatever, and you talk to them. But in the NES version, you would walk up to somebody, you would press a button to open the menu, and you would select talk from the menu. So,
oh, wow.
that that's one sort of like old school vestige that glad they kind of did away with.
Well, back when controllers only had 2 buttons or 1 button sometimes, right? So
yeah, but I mean, how many buttons do you use in this? Probably just the same one.
3.
3?
2?
Oh, I guess the buttons that do other things too. Like there's a really nice map in this one now.
There's the map button,
yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And they've definitely taken steps to bring it out of the 1986 design thinking, which is nice.
Yeah. It's cool. No, it's if anyone like me, I think, is sort of intimidated by going way back to the beginning of some of these series, and if you like the more modern Dragon Quest games, I think this definitely feels like a fun way to sort of see where the origins of a lot of this stuff came from.
Yeah.
Cool. So, what did you dip into for your last game here?
So I had a huge change of pace from whatever I was playing the previous weeks.
Armored Core and Wolfenstein.
And yeah, Wolfenstein. I played some Mario Brothers. I played New Super Mario Brothers U, which part of the reason I picked this one specifically is, well, first of all, I never played it, but also I keep hearing people say that it's one of like the best Mario games ever made. So I want to see what that was all about. Yeah. Specifically, I'm playing New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe, which is the version that's on the Switch. So this is originally a Wii U game, but like we were saying, it's one of the ones that have been liberated from the Wii U, and now it's on the Switch for everybody to enjoy. And it's more or less like, I don't know what people's expectations of a Mario game are these days, but it's, your typical sort of 2D side-scrolling Mario. You can play as a bunch of different characters in this one, which I thought was cool, because I think it's, you have the option of playing local multiplayer as well, so you can have 4 characters running around on the screen all at the same time. So, of course, they have to provide some character options, so not everybody has to be Mario. But it's cool. You can play as Mario and Luigi. You can play as a couple colors of Toad. You can play as Toadette. You can play as Nabbit, which I don't really understand. I recognize Nabbit as a character that exists in Mario games, but I don't remember what game he's from. It might have been one of the new Super Mario Brothers games. I just didn't play that one. Do you know this character?
It's the rabbit with the scary shark teeth, right?
Yeah, he's got like a little bandana over his face. Like this was like, first of all, the character's just kind of weird looking. He's like a purple rabbit. And you can't even really tell what his face is. Yeah, he's just like, well, it's like, a mask or something. And it has like sharp teeth drawn on. But like underneath, I was trying to imagine what he would look like if he wasn't wearing this thing. And I just like, would he look like a rabbit? I don't know. Because he's got like rabbit ears, but other than that, he just looks sort of like Grimace.
Or one of the rabbits from the the Ubisoft games.
Yeah, kind of like that. I mean, he doesn't look like one of the rabbits from Odyssey, like the moon rabbits, because they actually had sort of like a snout, like an actual rabbit. This guy is just kind of a weird, like Among Us crew member, where he's like in a little purple suit or something. It's just like weird.
It looks like a little jelly bean. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a little jelly bean. He's one of the Fall Guys.
The Fall Guys. There you go. But rabbit ears.
Yeah, so I mean, that's weird. I don't really understand like what the origin of this character is. But I did like to let you play as a bunch of different characters. So I thought, rather than playing as Mario, I'll just switch it up and play this whole thing as Luigi. I don't know if he has like sometimes when you play as Luigi, he's got like this weird floaty jump, which I didn't think I want, but whatever. I just wanted to get Luigi in the spotlight. And it turns out he doesn't have the weird floaty jump, so like everything is good. And from there, it just turns into like pretty standard Mario platformer. And I'm not trying to like put this game down or anything. It's a pretty solid Mario game from what I've played, but I don't know if I'm quite seeing the like the things that are causing people to say it's one of the best Mario games ever made. Like it still has I still have a lot of the same issues with it that I have with the other new Super Mario Brothers games, where I just feel like like aesthetically, it's pretty bland. It just looks sort of like the promo art. Like it's very clean. Like the graphics are very nice and very polished up, especially in this version. But it just feels so sterile. And I don't know. It kind of extends over to the environments where it's like, oh yeah, another like here's the grasslands world and here's the ice world and the water world. And I understand that you sort of have to check some of those boxes every time you have a Mario game, but It just feels so familiar.
Yeah. I mean, well, this series started on the 3DS, right? Was that the...
Well, the first one was on the DS, yeah. And then there was New Super Mario Brothers 2 on the 3DS, which had, it was all about the gold coins, like just way too many gold coins everywhere, which, as generic as a lot of other aspects of that game were, I thought, well, this is at least kind of an unusual new angle they're approaching this with. Just like, yeah, what if there were just way too many coins in every level? And like, what if all the power-ups were gold? And, it's kind of weird. But this one, it just feels like, okay, we tried the gold thing for a while, didn't really stick. So now we're just back to being a side-scrolling Mario game, and we've got some new power-ups, of course, but nothing really feels earth-shaking.
Yeah, I think that I've played a lot of this. I don't think I've finished it. It definitely feels like a game that was built to be more of a party game experience. It felt like the camera's sort of way far back, and you're a tiny little... Unless you take the giant mushroom and get huge, you're a tiny little character on the screen. So it felt like they were giving you space to get 3 other characters in there for you guys to sort of run and jump and bounce off of each other. And there's a little bit of a vibe of sort of griefing each other, because you can kind of like bounce off of somebody's head to get across a particularly wide chasm, and it shoots them kind of down into the depths, and you get to make the jump. If you're on the couch with your friends or family, and that's super fun and maybe a little bit of annoying. It's a Nintendo game, so there's definitely, little concessions made for keeping it accessible and friendly for, less experienced gamers. So playing it solo felt very barren. It felt like the camera was too far back. It felt like the challenges were a little too easy. And I just, I'm like, I don't quite understand the appeal of this game, and it feels very sort of samey over and over.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm like, maybe it would click if I was playing with 3 other people, but that's also just not really how I prefer to play a Mario game, probably.
Well, they would have to be in your house too, because it's all local only. You couldn't play it. Yeah. Like if this had an online mode, that would be super fun. That would be great. But it just doesn't exist in this game.
Yeah. I felt like the first world, or like world and a half, were on the easy side, which is, I guess, to be expected, because, that you just started the game and they're kind of ramping up. But by the time you get to the second, like the castle at the end of the second world, I think that like the difficulty starts to ramp up. The level design starts to get a little more interesting. Like there are more sort of like gimmicks each level than there are in the first couple of, like the first world especially. So at that point, I was like, oh, okay, this is starting to be a little more than just, going through the motions, running Mario over all these platforms. So I like that about it. I think that, at this point, I've played probably about half of it, and it seems like by the end, if sort of the level design trends continue, it'll be a pretty, like, interesting and sort of challenging Mario game to get through. But I don't know. I'm still not seeing, like, your best of all time Mario game material in this. But maybe that's just because I'm playing it by myself. Maybe I need 3 other people to really boost it to that level. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the case, but that was always my take on it. It felt like it was built initially to be a 4-player game, and kind of 1 was like the least ideal way to approach it. But yeah, it just didn't necessarily click with me. I thought it was fine when on the DS, but there was certainly, a novelty of having kind of a portable Mario game that was that big, and you had the like I said, the giant mushrooms where you could get super huge, and Mario would just barrel through everything unstuck on everything.
Yeah.
And, to have that sort of
the
stretch
giant
across.
mushroom is in this one.
Oh.
Like at one point I ran to the little mini mushroom that makes you tiny so you can walk on water. And I was like, oh yeah, the mini mushroom. Wait, where's the giant one? And up to this point, I haven't run into it, so I'm wondering if that is even here.
Oh, that's weird.
Maybe that was...
My memory
it was definitely on the
DS.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember them showing that in a lot of the marketing, even, of Mario getting huge and smashing through all of the platforms that he would otherwise have to jump on.
Yeah. So maybe it just shows up later. I don't know. It is really exciting to see that the little mini mushroom, because that reminds me of when the DS version had just come out, and I was like, oh man, there are new mushrooms. What's going on? But yeah, overall, pretty solid Mario game. Which is to say, it's still pretty good. Like a good Mario game is like on the upper end of the spectrum of like how good a video game can be. But I don't know. I don't know if it's going to end up being in my like top 5 Marios of all time or anything like that.
Yeah. I'm definitely at a point where I sort of prefer Mario's 3D outings, unless it's a Paper Mario game, which seems to be the exception for me. But the 3D ones, particularly Odyssey, I think are just so much more interesting, and they do a lot more, contain sort of a lot more variety.
Mm-hmm. I'm really curious to see how Mario Wonder is going to shape up. Because,
that was my next question for you, is because over the last week we got a big dump of information about Wonder. I think when that was first announced, Super Mario Brothers U was the kind of the point of reference. I think a lot of people sort of felt like it looked like that game. I felt like it looked like that game. Does this make you more or less interested in Wonder?
I think, I don't know if playing this had any impact on it. In fact, maybe I should like pump the brakes on this so I don't get burned out on 2D Mario before that comes out. I don't know. I think I generally felt better about it after watching the direct about Mario Wonder.
Yeah.
Like there seems to be a lot more going on in the levels. I don't, there's something, I really don't like the little flowers that just speak in like a human voice. Like I don't really understand what thinking is behind those. Do you remember these from the trailer?
I don't remember if I noticed that. That is odd.
They're like, I don't even remember what they say really. It's just like sometimes they'll be going through a stage and there'll be a flower that looks sort of like everything in Mario has a face on it, so it just looks like any other flower in Mario. But then it just like says stuff, and yeah, I don't remember what it says, but it's like just sort of meaningless sort of flavor text. Like I think at one point it talks about one of the Goombas that are on the screen, and it's not even like, a cartoony sort of like Mario character voice. It just sounds like some man is speaking, which is just like, what? What is the deal with this flower? It just sounds like the voiceover on any Nintendo Direct trailer, which it's like kind of peppy and, a little bit funny, but also just very, very safe. I don't know what the Mario aesthetic is at this point. It's just, it's appealing to everybody, so just it's very shiny, and there are no rough edges on anything.
I will have to dig into that, because it doesn't sound like something that I noticed. I would certainly remember it based on what you're describing. So that's an interesting choice.
I just think it'll be weird playing a Mario game whether there's just somebody speaking to me periodically. Like, what is this supposed to accomplish?
Well, I'm waiting for Mario to sound weird too, because it is not Charles Martinet anymore. So,
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
give that guy a break.
I mean, he certainly put in the time, but some of the reaction from the event last week was like, "Oh, Mario sounds different," and I'm not sure if people are like looking for it now because they know he's not in the game anymore. But
I'm sure they got somebody who is doing their best sort of Mario impression. It'll be fine.
I like your confidence.
I really like one of the things that stands out to me in New Super Mario Brothers is like whenever you finish a level as Luigi, he's like, "Oh, made it." I'm like, "Oh, Luigi, what? Like, have some confidence in yourself. Like, of course you made it. Like, just of course you were gonna make it. Why wouldn't you make it?" And then at the end of the stage, when you beat the boss, he's like, yeah, I'm a winner. And it's like, oh, okay, there you go. Now he's feeling better about himself. But it's just like Luigi is such a sad sack all the time. Just hilarious. So he's just like, oh, just barely scraped by that level.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, I do appreciate it. I appreciate a moody Luigi. Yeah. I always like that about the Luigi's Mansions game, where he would just rather be sitting at home watching TV, but like, now I gotta go bust some ghosts.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
reluctantly. Yeah, I'm intrigued that Wonder they have added online multiplayer, so that will address maybe some of the limitation of this experience. I don't know if
they did.
Yeah, it has up to 4 players online, and actually only supports 2 in person.
Oh, well, that's weird.
So, and there's an asynchronous mode too. Did you see the shadow mode that they have?
Yeah, the Death Stranding mode where you can like leave messages for other people.
But they can help you too. Like if you fall into a pit, like the shadow runner can like pull you out of the pit.
You drop them a little ladder or whatever. You drop your strand there, and then somebody's like, "Oh, thanks," and they give you a like, and I don't know exactly how it works. But
I didn't make that connection.
I was like, it's like, oh, this is just Death Stranding again. Sweet.
Death Stranding just starts to leak into other video games.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, what did Kojima say? He was like, it's the first Strand genre game. So I'm like, oh, what's the next Strand genre game? Oh, it's Super Mario Wonder. I never saw that coming. So I'm excited about that aspect. But anyway, New Super Mario Brothers U. It's a Mario game. Who would have thought?
Are there many more Mario games that you have not played at this point?
Well, I haven't played New Super Mario Brothers Wii, which I think, I'd probably have to track down an actual copy of that and play it on a Wii or Wii U. I don't know if I see myself going back and doing that, but as far as just big holes in my Mario play history, I don't know. That might be the only one. I still haven't played Galaxy 2, which I hear is very good, or any of the Paper Mario, so there's definitely stuff I could be playing if I really felt like I was missing out on if I needed more Mario in my life.
Yeah. I've also not played Galaxy 2. We might have to align on that at some point.
Oh.
I like Galaxy. I think everybody likes Galaxy. It's sort of generally well regarded, but never sort of mustered the enthusiasm to play Galaxy 2.
Yeah. It just felt so... I was like, okay, well, I just played Mario Galaxy. What's new in this one? But I think the story there is like they just made so many levels. They couldn't fit it all into one game.
Cool. So as we are wrapping up our Backlog Attack this week, what is happening with our Discord clan?
Well, let's see what happened this week. Peter says he finished Illusion of Gaia. He was playing through the Quintet trilogy on the Super Nintendo. Says he didn't like it as much as Soul Blazer. I can see that. I feel like Illusion of Gaia is sort of the popular choice, but Soul Blazer is a little... how would I describe it? It's sort of like the original sort of mold that Illusion of Gaia came out of, so I could totally get people prefer the original. And he says he doesn't think he'll start Terranigma, which is the third of that trilogy, right away. He just played these other two back to back. That'll be good. Maybe you'll start it up just in time for me to play it during next year's Backlog Attack, because that's on my list.
And it's impressive because Peters, like myself, is not really good at finishing video games. So the fact that he has seen 2 of these games across the finish line is pretty impressive.
Eshian says he needs about 8 months to finish the remaining Final Fantasy XI expansions. Good luck with that. Should be done with that just before Dawn Trail comes out next summer. And then Russ Greeno has a whole list of all the games he finished this Backlog Attack. So he finished Tiny Ken, Quake 1, Resident Evil Revelations 2, Candleman, which is this interesting sort of like puzzle platforming game, it looks like. And then they played the final season of The Walking Dead, the Telltale game.
Oh, wow.
I never made it past season 1 of those, so at some point I should just go read the wiki to find out what happens.
Season 1 is definitely the good one. It is also very much the sad one. It is quite an emotional game, and the roller coaster continues into the final seasons, but it's good. They do a lot of time jumping, too, so you end up kind of all over the place.
Oh.
Yeah. It's those Telltale Walking Deads. I think the Walking Dead series of games is Telltale's sort of like pinnacle. I think those are definitely.
Oh, I think so. I mean,
peak Telltale.
Definitely, it's sort of like what put them on the map, that first season. Yeah. Oh, I think I was just over being miserable in entertainment after that first season, so I was like, I'm gonna play, I don't know, Spelunky or
something happier, like The Last of Us.
Like The Last of Us. Well, that was around the same time, wasn't it?
No, I know.
It's like, oh yes, another zombie game where just everybody gets murdered. But anyway, people made a lot of progress on their games this summer. That's terrific.
Good. That's very cool. We appreciate everybody kind of playing along with us and being game for the adventure here throughout August. And for Eshian, if he needs about 8 more minutes to finish, the backlog ends when you say it ends, man. You can continue to grind away at that if you'd like. Keep it going. I mean, we're going to do another one next summer, so if you can just sort of make it like run up to next August, then backlog forever.
Man, that's a lot of months. It's a lot of MMO.
We have GD Milkman in our Discord says that he has 2013 games in his Steam library.
It's a lot of games.
It's a lot of games. And I thought he was saying that he has to play a bunch of games from 2013, from the year 2013. But no, that is the actual count of games that he has in his library. And that's a much harder to approach number. I imagine like, hey, maybe a year would be the way to kind of bucket this. Like if the next time I tackle like some old games, like I'm going to pick a random year, like anything in my backlog from 2012, I need to finish. But that is
from
not
1987.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Got to clean up all those 1987 games, but not what GD Milkman meant. He just has somewhere in the order of 2,000 plus games he needs to play.
It's a lot of games. Wonder what the plan is for that sort of situation.
One a day, every day for the next. How many years is that? That's a lot of years.
4 or 5 years? No, more than 5 or 6. I don't know. 2,000. It's a lot of years. But anyway, he's got it covered. Just finish a whole game every day. That's great.
Excellent. Well, let's wrap this thing up. Put a pin in it.
Yeah.
Start working on your backlog attack list for next summer.
Get back to real life, or Tears of the Kingdom anyway. One of those things.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to join us on Discord. We keep that Backlog Attack little chat room up all year long. So if you want to just hang out and play old games from your backlog, there is a room dedicated to that. You can come do that, and I'm sure we would cheer you on. You can get a link to our Discord at VGHangover.com as well. And we would love for you to subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcasting app of choice, and maybe help us out by telling your friends about the show.
Yeah. Really help us get the word out. One of the best ways for new listeners to learn about the show. So that would be great. Just tell your friends. We want to give thanks again to Fear of Dark for our intro and outro music this week. You can hear more of his work at fearofdark.bandcamp.com. Maybe while you're there, just add an album to your cart and hit checkout. Send him a few bucks. That would be great.
Yeah. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See you.